Hi everyone, a very good evening to all of you. I hope I'm clearly visible and audible. Just confirm it once. Thank you for confirming. Right. So, our 31st editorial analysis session, and today we have an excerpt from Eon. Yes, eon.co. But before we even begin the discussion, I want to ask you if you have started taking tests, if you have taken some topic tests, sectional tests, even mocks, just let me know how your experience has been. Yes. Hi Chahat. Good evening. Good evening, Xenotone. Hi JK. Good evening. Right. So, how many of you have taken tests? How has your experience been? Tell me. Good evening, Manya. Your first class. Welcome, Darshnik. Hi, Harsh. Good evening. Hello, Kunal. So it's very important to take tests. I understand that when we, let's say, take a sectional for the first time, we may not score very well, or our score may not be up to our expectations, even if it is good, right? Which is a very natural thing, and it happens with almost every student preparing for CAT out there, right? You are not alone. So don't let that discourage you from taking tests. You should rather be aware of your next step, which is to analyze those tests, right? So to see where I made a mistake, in what kinds of questions am I making a mistake. For example, we practice an excerpt here, we practice some questions here. Is there a question type where, let's say, you face a challenge? Same might have happened with you in the sectionals. Then you know that you need to work on that particular question type. If elimination is posing a challenge, that it could be a possibility that you are not following, let's say, all the labels that we have talked about. For example, this is broad, this is alien, this is narrow, this is extreme. So see if you are actually going for this logical process or not, or are you just relying on your gut feeling, or are you just panicking because of the timer and marking just about anything, right? So very important to analyze like this. Haspreet, this is there on YouTube. Okay, mistakes have reduced, comprehension has been better than before. Okay, that's a good, Chahat. VA section as well. Yes, so the VA part as well. See, first of all, it demands preparation from you. So we do expect you to practice 5 VA questions every day without fail. Okay, so on our class portal, we upload 5 questions for students every day so that they can practice them. And when it comes to para jumbles, sequence para jumbles, the accuracy usually tends to be low, right? Initially, especially. So do not get discouraged. Even if, let's say, you have a 30 to 40% accuracy in sequence para jumbles, that's decent. Okay, for a start, that's very decent, right? So don't get bogged down by low accuracy in para jumbles. Para summary is very, very closely related to your practice of RC passages, to your reading habits. So if you have a reading habit, if you practice RCs, if you attempt questions, it is related to the main idea question, isn't it? So in that case, you will become gradually better at para summary questions as well. So para summary has been more or less a constant feature of CAT since since in fact the pattern has changed. So 2015, since 2015 it has been a regular feature. So you should practice that. Okay. All right. Then odd sentence out para jumbles can offer you a high ROI. So do practice them regularly, right, as part of your 5 VA questions. And missing link is again, or the missing sentence as you call it. So this question again can be time saving, at least sometimes, yes, if the paragraph is not lengthy. So I think these are 2 question types that can help you to score in a less amount of time if practiced well. So do make it a part of your 5 VA questions, right? 2 attempts. Okay, all right. I would say that you go for a third attempt, Achyut, because you're talking about a tier 3 private college. So the ROI may not be very great there, right? Okay. All right. So even if, okay, so if your score is declining, Ayush, again, we need to ask why. Why is that happening? Maybe let's say the sectionals that you have chosen to attempt, that they are progressively increasing in difficulty level. That could be one of the reasons. In that case, you don't have to worry about as much. Maybe let's say the process of elimination, let's say you are not following that consistently, and that's why the scores are fluctuating. So you need to analyze. That's why I say that this is something that is very important. Okay, so all right. Okay, so Ritik, we are beginning with our editorial analysis session. Definitely, that's the motive. However, I think the overall motive of all these editorial sessions also is to make you better in reading comprehension, and ultimately to make you better at test taking, and then taking that test in CAT. So that's why it's important to talk about tests, and that's why I chose to do so today. Okay. All right, Janvi, that's a very specific query. Uh, it is a good college. However, again, it will depend on your profile, whether you're ready to prepare again, right? You can devote that amount of time. So, a lot of factors. Okay. All right. No, gut feeling or tukka, no. Do not do that, Darshnik. Maybe it will work for one or two questions out of, let's say, your 16 RC questions, or out of your 24 VRC questions. It will not work on a consistent basis. Okay. So, refrain from it, right? Okay. All right. So, let's now approach our topic for the day, which is loneliness. Yes, if you have seen the thumbnail. So, tell me, what is the difference between these terms, between loneliness, aloneness, solitude, alienation, isolation? So, okay, first of all, how are these two different? Loneliness and aloneness. Yes. So, which of, okay, let's put it this way, which of them has a negative connotation while the other may not? Yes. Good evening, Neelu. Aloneness is being alone, right. So which of them will carry a negative connotation? It will be loneliness, correct, because it is related to the sadness that comes from being alone, right? Aloneness is a neutral word, so this is the symbol for neutral. Now this is neutral, right? In fact, some people are happy being alone. Yes, they are, in fact, there's a word for them called loners. So these people experience solitude when they are alone. Yes, when you can finally reflect on your thoughts, you can spend time with your thoughts. So solitude is positive, right? Okay, what about alienation? Alienation. Excellent, Chahat. Loneliness can be experienced even among a crowd, even amid a crowd, whereas aloneness refers to the idea of not being in a crowd. Absolutely. Isolation is negative, okay. Alienation. So, have some of you attended my session? So, in the students who are enrolled with us, they must have attended an RC session where I talked about Karl Marx's theory of alienation. Karl Marx gave a theory of alienation when he was quite young. So alienation is also related to the idea of being, feeling left out, feeling excluded, right? So how is this different from loneliness then? How is this different from loneliness? Shraddha, even so, that can also be the case for people, right? For loneliness, that you are with people but you're not able to relate to them. So, alienation is more about, a sense of related emotional feelings would be those of numbness. You feel very uprooted, right? Uh, just a second, is there a lag? Okay. All right. So, um, mm, is it okay now? All right. I hope it's okay now, right? Okay. So, you feel this sense of uprootedness. You are just not able to relate with your fellow beings. So, loneliness could be, that you are just sad that other people are probably not including you. But alienation is more related to this uprootedness, that you're just not able to relate. Even when you are with those people, you're not able to relate with those people. So, there's this uprootedness, there's this numbness, right? It's more serious. Okay. Isolation. Isolation could be imposed on a person as well. Yes, so for example, I think COVID made this word quite popular. So you needed to isolate in case, let's say, a person who was infected needed to isolate. Then even imprisonment is a form of isolation at times, where if, let's say, there is this person who is in a cell, only as one person in a cell, so even that is a form of isolation. So isolation can be imposed on a person as well. Okay. So again, yes, this is also a negative feeling, this is also a negative feeling, this is positive, this is neutral, most of them negative, right? So we are going to talk about them, and I invite you to read about Marx's theory of alienation, right? Quite interesting, this one. Okay. So our piece is from Aeon, right? um, it is related to language because it is going to talk about the term loneliness, the word loneliness. That's why I discussed all these words with you. It is 560 words, right? And the original article talks about the views of a philosopher named Hannah Arendt. Have you heard of her? Hannah Arendt. So she was also a prominent philosopher. She even analyzed Marx's views on alienation. Okay, so the original article talks about her views. What I have taken is simply an excerpt. Yes, yes, Ritik. Okay, so let's read slide by slide. Read from the beginning till the end. I think it's easy to understand, nothing very complicated. So, in case something is not clear, then I'll explain. Otherwise, go for it. Read. Okay, Puneet has finished. Others? All right. So, should we move to the next slide? Let's go. Okay. Others completed? Sorry. All right. Let's go to the next slide then. The last one. Okay. So, Lakshay, we should just read and grasp the meaning, right? Keep grasping the key ideas. We usually don't have that much time in the exam that we'll be able to make short notes, right? Okay. So, how did you find this particular excerpt? Easy, moderate, difficult in terms of reading? The main idea was easy, okay. Informative and factual, easy. Okay, easy. Depends on the questions. Fluke is saying that. Right. So, do you want me to explain anything first or do you want to do the questions first? Moderate, average. Okay. All right. Let's attempt the questions first, then I'll explain. Right. Okay. So, as per the author's reasoning in para 1, under what circumstances can language fail to capture a phenomenon? Okay. So, this is your question. Tell me, what should the answer be? Good decision, Neelu. Let's go to the passage. Read? Let's go back to the questions. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. So I've got A, B, and D. And okay, I've also got C. Okay. So, and I think more of B's here. Right. Let's go back. Okay. Do you want to attempt all the questions at a stretch or you want to move question by question? Tell me. Just taking your opinion and moving accordingly. All right. Question by question, let's do that. So the answer here is this. D. Delhi, not B. Bangalore. Let's see why. We have to stick to our passage. Okay. Now, the author says that uh, both approaches leave the reader a bit cold, right? Both the approaches to capturing loneliness, and this is in part because loneliness is so difficult to communicate. We are dealing with something that is so difficult to communicate. As soon as we begin to talk about loneliness, we transform one of the most deeply felt human experiences into an object of contemplation and a subject of reason. Now see this part. Language fails to capture loneliness. This is what you had to focus on the most, because loneliness is a universal term that applies to a particular experience. Okay, everybody experiences loneliness, but they experience it differently. So why is language failing to capture loneliness? Because it's like a blanket term that has been assigned to so many different experiences, isn't it? So, how can one word suffice for so many individual experiences, different experiences? That is the problem why language fails to capture loneliness. Do you get this? So, because it is kind of overlooking individual experiences in favor of a general term. That is why language is failing to capture a phenomenon. Now, A is not the answer because the idea, it says in part, the problem in part is that it is a deeply felt human experience. That's what my passage says. So that is just part of the problem. Yes, so it is difficult to communicate. It is one of the most deeply felt human experiences. So this is just part of the problem. This is not the heart of the problem, the core of the problem. Right? B says, when even after reasoning and contemplation, I understand both the words are mentioned in the first paragraph, it does not capture individual experiences. The idea is not just that it is not capturing individual experiences. The idea is that it is lumping all of them together under one umbrella term. So this is incomplete. It is not talking about the fact that we have assigned one general term for it, one blanket term for it. Okay? Okay. Then, when it defines a phenomenon as an action and not as a feeling, isn't this the easiest to eliminate? Those who said C initially. Because that is not the aspect captured in paragraph 1. So, this is alien to para 1. It's mentioned later, right? But not in this context. This discussion doesn't happen in this context. I hope this is clear. Why A, B and C are eliminated? Why D is the answer? Perfect. Alright then, let's go for question number 2. Which of the following is the function played by the third paragraph of the passage? So, read the options and then let's go back to the third paragraph. Should we go back? Okay, so paragraph 3 is here. Done? Evoke is to bring about. So basically to bring to recall. So it was a word often used in sermons. Okay, let us go to question 2. Yes, we can. Okay. Others? All right. So most of you have said A, one of you said B. Any other responses? I am not deducting any marks here. You can answer. Okay, two B's. All right, three B's. So that means you're primarily confused between A and B here. But those who are saying B, 16th and 17th centuries, isn't the 18th century also mentioned? See, we do talk about the 16th century, you're right. We talk about the 17th century. So 1600s are the 17th century, isn't it? 1600s, 17th century. We do talk about the 18th century. 1700s mean the 18th century. That is what makes it incorrect. Okay, so our answer is not B. Our answer is A. Yes, it explains how the word loneliness carried a particular meaning during a certain period. So in this period, 16th, 17th, 18th centuries, right, in this period of 300 years, loneliness carried a certain meaning, right? uh, what was that meaning? That you were this act of being alone. Yes, this act of being alone. So people were asked to imagine themselves in lonely places, so basically they were alone. Yes, then it was infrequently used. And what did it mean? Far from neighbors. Again, the idea of being alone. Again, here the lonely fox, the idea of being alone. So in all these 300 years, the idea was that of being alone, right? The word hadn't changed much in terms of its meaning. The meaning still carried, the main meaning was still aloneness. Yes, so this is the answer here. Now I think, did somebody think C as well? It shows how loneliness was a rarely used word during a certain period. So is this the main function, that loneliness, the word was infrequently used? That it was infrequently used. Am I trying to show you that through this paragraph? How do I judge that? Look at the next paragraph, that will help you. It says until the 19th century, so even till the 19th century, loneliness referred to an action, okay, and had less to do with feeling. So my point of this paragraph was not to tell you about the frequency of use of the word. It was to tell you that it referred to an action. The idea of its being a feeling came later on. So that is why C is not the answer. Now D says it exemplifies how different dictionaries differed in their definition of the word. Okay, where have I mentioned different dictionaries in this paragraph? There's only one dictionary that has been talked about, so I can't even say different dictionaries, how they differed in their meaning. Okay, so D is actually alien. It's not narrow, it's alien. Okay, all right, I hope this is clear now. Good, many of you said A for this one. Question 3, read this and answer. Yes, if you again want to go back, we can go back. Do we want to go back? Okay, right. Let's have a look. Right. So this is what I'm looking for. Etymological. Okay. So etymology means the study of origin of words. Okay. So basically those studies that trace the origin of this word loneliness, they show. All right. So I've got three responses, one A, two B's. Okay. All right. So we are talking about a societal shift in this question. Yes? Anybody who feels C or D is the answer? Or should I proceed to explaining it? All right. So, see this. If you notice, throughout the 16th century, it was often evoked in sermons to frighten churchgoers from sin. So, there was this religious association, right? Then, even here, until the 19th century, uh, it actually referred to, people being cut off from the world and God's love. And in a certain way, this makes sense. The author also talks about Bible and Genesis. So the association of religion and loneliness was quite strong till the 19th century. Now, in the 19th century, amid modernity, loneliness lost its connection with religion and began to be associated with secular feelings of alienation. Right? So, this sort of is trying to say that there was a break from religion in the 19th century, and rather it became a secular feeling, okay, of alienation. The use of the term began to increase sharply after 1800 with the arrival of the industrial revolution, okay, and continued to climb until it leveled off, rising again during the first decades of 21st century. So look at this, loneliness took up character and cause in Herman Melville's Bartleby the Scrivener, A Story of Wall Street. So again, do you see that I am talking about loneliness in terms of, let's say, what a person is doing, their occupation, rather than their religion, right? Realist paintings, that means now it has entered our, not, it's not being associated with the divine, but rather with realism, our real life, our everyday life. In fact, T.S. Eliot's, although this is external knowledge, but this poem actually talks about the post-World War One society. Yes, post-World War One society. So look at this. It was ingrained in the social and political landscape, romanticized, poeticized, lamented. So this is what happened to it. That, we started looking at it from a social and political lens. So these are the things that happened. Now, I have to weaken this idea, right? I have to undermine the claim that this shift marked a break from earlier religious or physical understandings of loneliness. If you mark A as the answer, A says several 19th century religious sermons continued to describe loneliness as divine punishment or spiritual exile. This may happen, let's say, even later, 20th 21st centuries, but does that mean that loneliness is still primarily looked at as something religious in our society? It could still be associated more with these, right? Modernity, alienation, artistic expression. So saying that religious sermons continued to describe it in those terms does not actually undermine this break. Okay. If I show that even in the society, let's say even in the larger society, that break from religion did not happen, then yes, then I would have shown it. The fact that a particular religious pocket, a small subsection of the society, which is, let's say, these religious sermons, they continued to use the word in that religious sense, they continued that, that is something that is expected of them also. It still implies a subsection. Okay, so that is why A is not our answer here. B says prominent realist authors in the 19th century often portrayed loneliness as a symptom of urban overcrowding rather than isolation. Okay, so how does that imply a break from the earlier religious understanding? This is a comparison between overcrowding and isolation. Yes. So those who are saying B, probably because you're saying that the religious understanding was that of being in exile. Is that the reason? And if that is the reason, let's say, fine, accepted. So is that undermining the claim in that sense, or is it supporting the claim in that sense? You are not undermining this claim, no? That there is a break. You are then supporting that claim. That yes, there is a break from, let's say, this religious understanding of being in exile to urban overcrowding, to something that is associated with modernity. So B is actually supporting the argument. I hope all of you are with me. Yes, listening to me. Now look at C and D. C again looks at a very small pocket in a way, right? Etymological studies show that the word loneliness retained its spatial connotation. So the spatial connotation, is that the primary point here, or is it the religious point that is primary? Tell me. When I went back to the passage and I showed you, which connection came out more strongly, the religious one or the physical one, the spatial one? So A, this is tangential, this is not the primary point, right? The spatial connotation. And B, this is just showing the rural context. Yes? Okay. Now, why is D the answer? Romantic poets of the early 19th century invoked loneliness to explore mystical unity with nature and the divine. Now, see, these poets, are they religious people? Poets, are they religious people? So if religious people are using, if religious people are using loneliness in a religious sense, that does not tell me much about whether in the larger society also it is being used in a religious sense, right? Religious people may continue to use it in a religious sense. But if these non-religious people also, people who are not primarily associated with religion, they are using it in a religious sense, and that too in the 19th century, when it is also stated in my passage that it was poeticized. So even in this poetic sense, it still retained that religious connection. That means there was no neat break, as my passage is saying, that there was a break. Okay, it lost its connection with religion. Does this make sense? This was a tricky question, because when you look at the options first, you feel like, oh, this can also be the answer, this can also be the answer. Yes? So D, Delhi is the answer. Chahat is correct. Glam and Grace is correct. Okay. I understand that poets are also a subsection. But then look at whether that so here, sorry. Let me just, So here, this subsection are the religious people themselves. So religious sermons may continue to describe loneliness as divine punishment, but probably the larger society has started dissociating it, right? So this is their job, right? This is the job of religious people and if the Bible says it, they have to describe loneliness as divine punishment. But you are right in saying that this is also a subsection. I rejected C not just because of the subsection part, I also rejected it because of the spatial connotation part, because that is not the primary point. The primary point is the religious association. Okay, then this I rejected because it was supporting. Now poets are also a subsection, you are absolutely right there, but it is a non-religious subsection that is associating it with religion. So this lends credibility to the fact that even in the non-religious parts of the society, it was still being associated with religion. Right? I hope this makes sense. Spatial means related to space. So you are looking at loneliness as something related to space. So if you are in a space where there aren't other people, then you are being lonely. So that would be the spatial connection, connotation of loneliness. Right? Does this make sense? So this was a tricky question. If the focus breaks while reading, we have to bring ourselves back, right? Try to evoke interest in what you are reading. Try to visualize it. Visualize that time when loneliness must have been looked at in purely religious terms. Then, imagine a worker working in a factory, feeling disconnected from everything, feeling like I'm just a machine, right? So, bringing those images to mind helps you to make genuinely interested in what you are reading. Okay? So visualization is one technique. Unpackaging, especially if you're finding the text to be difficult. Okay, something is wrong with my pen today. This is also a technique that helps. Visualization, unpackaging. Okay. Now, let's see this one. This is quite interesting. So I have combined a tone and a structure question, right? So this has elements of both the tone and the structure. Yeah, sorry. You have to tell me the tone as well as the structural movement of the passage. Yes, go for it. Okay. Others? So Ashish is saying A and B both. We have to choose one of them. Poetic and nostalgic, Haspreet. Why? How is the tone nostalgic? Okay, Ritik. Author's claim and author's conclusion. Author's conclusion claim is usually it contributes to the premise. Let's say when the author gives an opinion, yes, and on the basis of that, when the author derives something, okay, on the basis of that he gives another statement, that statement would be the conclusion. Claim could be just any opinion given by the author. Okay. Polemical is very harshly critical, right? Polemics are your critiques. So critical and polemical is just a degree. So basically you are harshly criticizing. That's the idea. So I think D could be eliminated and C could be eliminated. It is between these two. Now, some of you are saying B. Yes, in fact, a lot of you are saying B. Tell me something. You say that the author's opinions are not there. Yes? So let me just erase everything. Uh, it says this, just a second. At the very beginning, when the author says that writing on loneliness often falls into one of the two camps. Either people will write a memoir, right, of how they were lonely at some point in their lives. Okay, they will indulge in it, right? It will be overindulgent. They'll just wallow in their loneliness, right? Or it would be like given a very medical treatment. Now look at this. Both approaches leave the reader a bit cold. Both approaches leave the reader a bit cold. Is this not an opinion? One wallows in loneliness, clearly an opinion. When you wallow, you are just extremely sad about it, you cry about it, you just want to keep on going about how sad, how lonely your life is. Right? So one wallows in loneliness while the other tries to do away with it altogether. Then the author again says, in part, it's because loneliness is so difficult to communicate. So these are all in the nature of opinions, the ones that I have checkmarked, right? So it's not that the author has not given their opinion, right? It's just that this paragraph, you could say, is something that is tracing the history. Yes, we now begin to trace the history. One of the first uses was this. Throughout the 16th century, it was used in this manner, right? So while we have traced the history, correct, but is it just the history that we have traced? Are we also not showing the culture of the time through that? Because why is it, just wonder this, that why is it that 16th, 17th, 18th, even till the 19th century, loneliness was used in the sense of being alone? Because the society was, now again I am going a bit outside here, although I don't need to, but I'm just explaining this to you because perhaps neighbors had an important role in our lives, and the feelings, internal feelings of an individual were not so much the focus as the religion and living in a collective society. So while this is very implied here, but see, later on the cultural change becomes very evident. Modernity we talk about, this is a cultural change. Industrial revolution brings about a cultural change. Now loneliness has been divorced from religion. Okay, so the tracing is not just historical, it is also cultural, it is also social, political. Okay, when we talk about McCarthyism, this is a political era that I am talking about. Ideology, terror, Marx. So I hope this is now evident to you that it is not just focused on the historical usage, it is not just scholarly and descriptive, it is reflective, it is layered. Okay, it moves from a critique of how loneliness is portrayed, the overindulgent memoir, or let's say the medicalization, to a cultural and historical analysis of its evolving meanings. Right? Evolving meanings, changing meanings. I hope this is clearer. Okay, third question again. All right. So which one? I didn't understand the question exactly. Okay. Let's spend some time on this. So first of all, I have given you something, that the passage suggests something, right? The passage has suggested something to us. What is that? I have just briefly summarized it for you, that loneliness in the 19th century became associated with these three things, right? If true means that, now assume this to be true. Okay, which of the following most seriously undermines or weakens an implication, the inference that I can draw from here, the implied claim that this shift to associating loneliness with modernity, alienation and artistic expression, it marked a break from earlier religious or physical understandings of loneliness. So it marked a break means that now it was not thought of in religious or physical terms. So you have to undermine this claim, you have to weaken this idea that there was a break from this religious understanding. So you have to show that no, there was no break from religious understanding. There was rather, in the 19th century also, there was an overlap. Right? I hope this is clearer. Logical questions, Shivendra, they are meant to take a higher amount of time. They are meant to make you think. Agreed. Okay. Now we also know that passages, they can, some passages are very linear in terms of the idea that they are presenting to us, so even their structure questions will be easier, logical structure questions will be easier. But some passages don't follow a very linear structure, so therefore they may be tricky. But you shouldn't form such opinions, such generalizations, that because some passages had a twist, every passage is going to have a twist. So don't approach that question with a preconceived notion. Just approach it with an elimination mindset. Every passage is a fresh passage, right? So just approach every passage like a new LRDI set. So the basic rules of the game, like broad, alien, narrow, extreme, tone mismatch, sidetrack or tangential, these remain the same. But the structure of each passage will be different. So don't think that just because I faced a twist in the earlier passage, it will come here as well. Okay? Questions were tricky. Absolutely. I can't make everything easy, no? So if it was a relatively easier read, the questions had to be tricky. Okay, otherwise it would become a very easy overall passage. Chalo, I am happy, Ashish, you enjoyed. So this is the whole article. Hannah Arendt. So for Hannah Arendt, totalitarianism is rooted in loneliness. So what is totalitarianism? अच्छा राहुल, what was your query? बूस्टर सेशन फॉर कैट कब आएगा? मिड सेप्टेम्बर. ठीक है, मिड सेप्टेम्बर में आएगा. सो इट इज़ अ फॉर्म ऑफ गवर्नेंस, ओके, अ रिजीम, ऐसी गवर्नमेंट जो चाहती है कि वो टोटल कंट्रोल हो उसका लोगों पर, राइट? सो North Korean society is a totalitarian society because there is extreme regimentation. Everybody should behave similarly. Everybody can get only certain kinds of haircut. So total control over the lives of individuals. Right? Absolute rule. Correct. So this is what Hannah Arendt said, that loneliness can make you totalitarian. So don't be lonely for longer periods. Yes? Hang out with your friends. And keep practicing. I will meet you on Friday now at 5 p.m. Somebody asked this, when all these sessions happen. So Wednesday and Friday at 5 p.m. Okay. All right. Welcome. See you all. Bye-bye.